Much has been said about great monuments around the world that are so magnificent in their structures that it boggles the mind how the ancients built them. According to some left-field theorists, people didn't build them at all, but aliens descended from the skies in what some have called giant eggs or boats, and it was those beings that actually built the structures. Well, if not built them, then directed the construction. That's how a pyramid could be made sitting at true north, say the theorists. They go one step further too, telling us that the pharaohs were actually alien-human hybrids. Sounds pretty far-fetched, but what's leading some to make these claims? Is there any evidence at all? Let's take a look at why some people believe this. As you may have seen in our other shows on the pyramids, to some Egyptologists, the question of how the pyramids were built still remains shrouded in mystery. We're not only talking about the hard labor of moving millions of stones, dragging them across the land, and then up the foundation, but the absolute precision in regards to just how they lie. The fact that the pyramids of Giza sit true north should be astounding to just about anyone, not just conspiracy theorists, while others who have studied the structure insist that this great monument was precisely built to reflect the dimensions of our planet. There are critics of this theory, and they state that if you shuffle the numbers enough, you can get the results you want to fit your theory. Nonetheless, with the pyramids being so incredibly majestic, it's certainly understandable that some people think that humans had a helping hand from something not of this world. Slightly more down-to-earth but still outside of the mainstream theorists have their own hypothesis, saying it wasn't aliens that did the work, but prior to the ancient Egyptians, another advanced civilization existed on Earth that had passed on their knowledge to them. Before we turn to the alien hybrid pharaohs, let's look at some other reasons why a certain segment of the public believes aliens came down to Earth, left, and then were worshipped as gods by ancient civilizations. For starters, we have the Moai of Easter Island and the giant stone heads that certainly couldn't have been easy to erect. There's plenty of evidence that it was possible for the Moai to build these statues, but there are still those that state that they were built in the shape of the aliens who lent a hand in their construction. Then there's the ancient Bolivian temple Pumapunku, which was built with stones weighing over 100 tons. Even today, scientists are in disagreement as to how humans moved them. The stones in the temple fit together like an interlocking puzzle, and this would have meant those builders had to have possessed a profound understanding of geometry and masonry. Not only that, the incredible intricate decorations in the stones are so outstanding experts don't really know how they managed to make them with such basic tools. Tests on mummies have shown that people in the area regularly consumed hallucinogenic plants, and to some theorists this was their way of connecting to another world, which might help explain their brilliant inspiration. We won't go through all the great wonders on this planet Earth, but there are many historical sites that boggle the mind. Take for example Stonehenge in the UK, or the temples of Vijayanagara in India that seem to have alien-looking figures and objects carved into the stonework. We are by no means attempting to sway you into thinking that just because humans in the past showed that they could do incredible things, that it means that they had help from aliens. But we're merely saying that this is a reason why some people believe this might have happened. Back to the Egyptians. Have you ever seen a picture of Pharaoh Akhenaten, the father of King Tut, who was said to have been the living embodiment of the solar deity and who died around 1336 BC? There are many remaining artifacts that depict what Akhenaten looked like, and you know what? He has an elongated head, much like the average gray alien. You can find one stone carving of him worshipping the disk of the sun, known as the Aten, with the beams of light shining down on him. Looking at this though, with his elongated head looking rather alien-like, if you didn't know better, you might think that the Great Disk was actually a spaceship, some kind of flying saucer. Of course, this is a long shot, and if you read more about ancient civilizations, you'll find that depicting people with elongated heads happened a lot, from the Australian Aborigines to the Mayans to many other places. Some have suggested that this might have been because they actually did have big heads, a deformation called macrocephaly that basically means big head in ancient Greek. This might have been the result of inbreeding or disease that led to the abnormality. It may have also been done on purpose. Cranial deformation might have also been a very painful procedure, something that children of noble birth had to go through to make them look unlike their ordinary folks. The theory is that it gave leaders to be great prestige. Whatever the reason, there's a lot of evidence of ancient people having these large heads all over the world. Some people would have you believe that these people were alien hybrids, or at least fashioned to look like the great things that came from the sky. There's no real solid evidence for this though, it's mere speculation or more like fantasy. As for the great Akhenaten, did he really have an enlarged head? Surely his mummy would tell us this, but we'll get around to that soon. Then there are the fantasies of the British tabloid press, who have at times not let the facts get in the way of telling a good tale, to put it politely. In 2016, some of the tabloids published an article about an ancient Egyptian coin that was unearthed. If you look at it, there's no doubt that one side portrays the elongated head of a gray alien. The problem with this is the fact that the only evidence of the coin being real was a line that told us the artifact was discovered by a group of people who worked on the renovation of a house in southern Egypt. We looked for more information at all on this mysterious group of renovators and couldn't find anything. We did, though, find coin experts talking about the alien head piece of cash, and they said this: a little research revealed that it's not even a real artifact, but a heavily retouched or photoshopped image of an actual Roman medallion in the famous collection of the Cabinet de Médailles in Paris. The hoax was uncovered by computer scientist Ralph Boulot. So much for trustworthy news sources. We found another dubious source telling us that DNA tests of Egyptian mummies revealed a gene called CXPAC5, which we're told is responsible for the building of the frontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain. 8 out of 9 mummies didn't contain this, but the mummy of Pharaoh Akhenaten did. The article then jumps to the conclusion that aliens must have planted this in the pharaoh. The blog post tells us that it's unusual to find CXPAC5 in the mummy of Akhenaten because he died at age 45, and it only appears in much older people. Akhenaten seemed to have an advanced brain. That said, we can find no one but alien enthusiasts talking about it. In fact, there are no links at all leading to the supposed study that tells us the pharaoh might have been linked somehow to aliens because of the appearance of this gene. Scientists are actually not sure where he was buried anyway, with it being suspected that he might have been laid to rest in KV-55, a tomb in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. One of the skulls found there was enlarged, but it's thought that this was because of a disease called chronic hydrocephalus. This basically means too much fluid on the brain, and that can distort the cranium. Other experts say the ancients' enlarged heads could have been down to various syndromes that cause macrocephaly. Still, the reputable experts are still debating if the skull was Akhenaten's at all, and they certainly haven't put forth a theory that aliens had planted a gene in his head that made it larger or made him more intelligent. The alien believers certainly connected a lot of invisible dots to make that story work. Finally, there's the allegedly ancient Egyptian text called the Thule Papyrus. You'll find certain sources saying this contains script that looks like it talks about UFOs. One translation of part of the text reads in English: in the year 22, 3rd month of winter, 6th hour of the day, the scribus of the House of Life found it was a circle of fire that was coming in the sky. Another part reads, they were more numerous than anything. They were shining in the sky more than the sun to the limits of the 4 supports of heaven. Powerful was the position of the fire circles. Wow, that certainly sounds like it might have been an account of an alien sighting. The only problem is the Thule Papyrus is not an authentic papyrus. It's a transcription of an alleged document of whose origin is dubious at best. Even some ufologists call the entire thing a hoax, saying someone was handed an ancient document and told it was a transcription of the original, and then someone translated that, and that's about it. In something called the Condon Report, a report by a group funded by the US Air Force on the possibility of alien life coming to Earth, this Thule Papyrus was talked about. The researchers wrote that it was taken from secondary and tertiary sources without any attempts to verify original sources. They also said that all such accounts of UFO sightings handed down from ancient times have proved to be weak and unverifiable. Until they can be verified, they're meaningless. From what we could see, a lot of people don't bother with the verification process, but are quite sure when writing their blogs from their bedrooms that they are right. Their evidence is like the Thule Papyrus in digital form. Dubious evidence handed down and rewritten and copied and passed on. It makes for a good story, but until we have more evidence, that's all it is, a story. As you can see, a lot of people claiming that pharaohs were part alien or contacted by aliens are connecting a lot of dots that don't necessarily mean much except in their own minds. They already have a picture they want to see, but science doesn't work by starting from a conclusion and finding evidence to back it up. It's the opposite. We look at the evidence we have and use that to come to conclusions. With that, we'll finish with a quote. In the words of astrophysicist Carl Sagan, in the long litany of ancient astronaut pop archaeology, the cases of apparent interest have perfectly reasonable alternative explanations, or have been misreported, or are simple prevarications, hoaxes, and distortions. Do you love strange, unexpected stories that defy belief but are completely true? Then you'll love the new show I Am. Fascinating tales told from the perspective of those who lived them. Find out what it was like to be a plague doctor during an outbreak of the Black Death, or the captain of the Titanic as it sank into the sea. Each episode, you'll jump inside the mind of a new person and get a first-person view on incredible events like no other. New episodes every week. Be one of the first to subscribe now and tell us who you want to see brought to life in I Am.